Okay. The fourth thing that we want to think about is on the report type tab, there are going to be special options on each report. Okay, so this report, and these are just things that people have asked us for. Do we want to include a count of each item when we are if we're reporting on routes or roads? Do we want to just see a route summary or a detail of every road in that route? This report is apparently able to track or to show materials and labor and equipment, so maybe I turn that on or off. If we go back to my vendor listing, it's got include a list of work interests, right? So here is my vendor listing. So let's maybe try just to see what happens. Let's turn that on. So if you've tied work interests to your vendors, now I can see that this vendor is interested in diving and marine and salvage and fire protection systems, which we are very interested in. I also see show period ending date. This one can be confusing for people. All it really means is, do you want to put a date on there on the report that says this is as of this date, right? So it puts it right there. So it sometimes can be confusing where people think, okay, when I'm running a cost report, do I want to see, I only want to see cost through May 1st. That's not what a period ending date means. That would be in a selection criteria to run through May 1st. So you'll notice, so we were doing control breaks on project was required, right? Okay, so what if I turn project, and you'll notice that we had one page, right, for a total of 331 hours. So if I try project not required, I'm going to right click and turn off required. Let's see what happens now. Now we get 8 pages, okay? And so now you'll see kind of the same report, what looks like the same report, a bunch of projects, a bunch of employee, or well, it's all Bernie, but many projects and employees. And then as I get down to the bottom, you'll see that there is a section for no project. So this is just personal preference again. And whether if you want to report by project, do you think there should be this giant section at the bottom that has a subtotal for no project, right? So here's 538 hours that added into our 331 to make 870, okay? And so that's just, again, how you think of it. Some people think if I run a time card report by project or by road or by building or by service request, it should always, for a week, it should always be the exact same number of hours and the exact same charges. And other people would say, why are you showing me a section with no project when I asked for project? Okay. Another thing we can do with these in the control breaks, you'll notice that there's this is multi-part, right? It's department and then project number, even though I don't seem to have good departments in there. But so you can open that up, right? So you'll notice right now it shows it 164-100981, and it would show the name of the department if I had good departments. I wonder if any of mine are good. No. And then the Big Lagoon storm damage, it can also do that as an individual break. So if I open it up like that, then run the report again, and so now you can see it does the 164 on its own line and then the 109.81 on its own line. Okay, and of course, again, if I want to push it to Excel, I might want this project also to be in the columns, right? So I might say, hey, let's throw project on there. So I can see that, you know, which if you're looking at it on paper looks a little redundant, but if you're pushing to Excel, it's nice. Let's see, what else? So let's say I got the report I wanted. Well, or let's say I have this report, but it's 8 pages long, and I really don't need to see this. My audience does not need to see every day that Bernie worked on this in the 8 hours of every day that he worked on the seismic retrofit. Okay. I just need to see totals. So what I could do is a summary report. So remember I had 8 pages. So now if I run it again, you'll notice there is no meat, right? I'm down to 4 pages because all it's showing is the same 870 hours, but with no details of what day, which day is which. If I want to get daily totals, I could add the date to my control breaks. That would be fine. But it also means that a lot of these columns are irrelevant because they aren't subtotaled. So I might, if I did a summary report, I might get rid of date, employee name, project, just have things that are in blue that can be subtotaled. So now I've got a tighter report. Okay, so now I'm down to 4 pages. Another thing you can do once you got a summary report is oftentimes we allow you to do single line subtotals, and that takes the bottom level. So now we're down to 3 pages. It takes the bottom level and puts it on its own line. Okay, and then I could say, well, I don't really need, especially since they're invalid departments, I don't really need the project and the project department and the project number to be on separate lines. So I'm going to go back to my control break and tighten that up. Okay, so now I've got a much tighter report that's showing me more what I want. Okay, now, and think about whether I want a project in there at all, because you can definitely make some silly reports with control breaks. Like I see this kind of pretty regularly where it says, I want to sort by date, okay, and I want that at the top. Oops. And then I'm going to get rid of project. I'm going to get rid of employee sort. And then after date, I would like to sort by payroll period. Okay, so maybe you can imagine what's going to happen here. Every date is inside only one payroll period. Okay, so it's going to say 6/29/15, and then it's going to show me period 1, and then 6/30/15 and period 1. So this is kind of a ridiculous report. Now watch the difference if I switch there. You want to go bigger to smaller, right? So if I put payroll period and then date, now I get something that has some meaning, at least. Okay, so now here's the totals for each day within period 1 and a subtotal for period 1. And remember, I'm not showing much detail because I've got summary report and single line subtotals checked. Okay, so let's take a look at some other things that are in the reporting options. Here, you can set your margins, although I don't know why you would. You can set your font size that you're asking for. So I'm looking for font size 10, but my minimum is font size 5, and I'm telling it no tiling, meaning no 1A, 1B, 1C. Just keep reducing the font size to force the report onto a single page. So we're literally asking the printer, what type of paper do you have in there and what will fit? And if you want to test that before you even print, you can go into here and say, into the optional columns and say check width. And it says selected columns will fit on report using font size 10. If I throw more columns on there, now we're down to 6, as you can see. So, and if I use different size paper, it might allow me to do more. Okay, back to my options. We talked about report output. Include cover page. That's whether you want to see this big wasted, not wasted, but this big page in the front that tells what report it was and when you ran it and all that stuff. So you can turn that off. Print cover page for empty reports. That's if you have a report that you like to do, say once a week for all the sick leave in a division. And let's say 1 week there is no sick leave in that division. Well, then we're just gonna print nothing. So let's try that. So I'm going to say print cover page for empty reports, and then I'm going to cause an empty report. Like I will select bridge 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and all selection criteria. I forgot to say this. All selection criteria is an and. So if I select a bridge and a crew and an equipment usage number, then every single thing in this has to be true. So as soon as I select bridge 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that means I don't want anything that is not bridge 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm pretty darn sure that I'm going to get nothing. So there it is, empty report, no records found. So that allows me to save or put something on my boss's desk that says, yep, there were no bridge 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 records this, or going back to my sick leave activity. So I'm going to find sick. So I'm going to pick sick leave there. Oh, I did find some sick leave, so that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the all there, and we're back in here. We talked about your export. You don't really need to worry about this because most people export directly to Excel now. If you really wanted to, you do a tab delimited or a comma delimited or something like that, you are welcome to. And where you'll find that is this button here. But that's export to a text file and then load it into some other program or into Access or whatever. I think I would go just through Excel. Okay. One other thing about this is sometimes people say, well, every time I print a certain form or a certain report, I want it to print on a certain printer. So if I want to print, so we have places like facilities dispatchers or road service request dispatchers who want to print, to enter a road service request and then print it on the printer by where the crews that are the maintenance people that are going to actually take care of the problem reside. So you can set up your options, right? So I'm going to go and say I'm going to go to print setup. It lets me select my printer. So I'm going to pick a different printer. And by the way, I'm going to select XPS document writer. This is like writing to a PDF, okay? And then I say okay. And then I can either say make this my default, or I can say only this report. And if I've changed the printer, then it says, do you always want to use this printer for this report? So then if I say yes, then every time when I run the time card audit trail, it will try to go to XPS. So you'll notice that when I print, it will go to the screen. Okay, remember I'm back to all selection criteria. It goes to the preview, and then if I say actually print, it comes up with XPS document writer, and it's going to ask me where to save the file and make a PDF. Okay, and so I could remember that I always want to print this on a special printer, if with special paper, or I don't know what. What else is in here? You've got your zoom in, zoom out. You've got your find options to find within the preview window. You got your send to the printer. This saves it as a rich text file. If you save it as a rich text file, that's fine. So I'm going to save it to my desktop. Oops. And it names it like that. So this is saving the output of the report as a rich text file. So now what happens when you open it, your computer should open it in Word normally. There it is. So it looks like this. So what you want to do in Word, we aren't telling Word how to format the report. So what you want to do is go to Page Layout and go to Orientation, pick Landscape, and then go to Margins and pick zeros, or let's see here, Custom Margins. There we go. So now it's not wrapping, and it looks somewhat reasonable. But if I were you, I wouldn't open it in Word. I would more print it to a PDF and work with it exactly as it was in a PDF for when I'm doing that. Okay, so now let's just say this was the report I liked. This gave me the information I need. this is, I selected on a certain activity code or something like that. And I want to, oh, you know what? I forgot one thing. Let's see here. You can also, let's go to like an invoice report. Or actually, let's go to a budget report. So a budget expenditure report. So I'm going to go to a ledger report. Okay. And look at my control breaks. So this particular budget, or this particular client has a budget that is fund, department, account group, and account. Okay. So whenever you have a multi-part key like this, you can say, okay, so I want, it's going to drill in fund, department, account group, and account. That's fine. Okay. And we can see what that looks like. But many of you, so you can see it goes fund, then department, then account group, and then account, and then it starts listing out accounts, right? But many of you have, especially if you have a bars number or lots of elements in your budget, you have ones that you don't use. So what you can do there is you can kind of roll those up. So you could say, I want the fund to be combined. So I can either exclude it entirely, so I don't even want the department, right? And it actually excluded the account as well because the account is dependent on the department. So I actually don't want to do that because it'll make my report look funny. But how about I'm going to exclude the account group, right? So the account group was the third element, so that's salaries and wages. So now if I run the report, you'll notice that salaries and wages level is gone. It's just removed. The other thing I can do is I can say I don't want the fund and the department to drill in like that. So I right click on fund and I say combine with next. So now I've got general fund and then fire department. So now watch what happens. So now this is a little tighter, general fund / fire department, and it shows them both on one line. Okay, so let's just say you get to the place where you want, let's go back to my time card audit trail, and we get the report that we want. This isn't that great of a report, but we got the report that we want. So now what we can do is we can save the settings to the file. Over here we were saving the actual output, but what we want is we don't want to have to take our time picking columns and selection criteria and control breaks, etc. We want to save the settings. So right here, the paper going into the disk, we can say save as, and it will default to your a folder called criteria underneath your WinCAMS folder. And what I like to do is make folders for each person that's going to be using it, with your name, and go like that. And then I say time card, it defaults me to time card audit trail, and I'll name it, tutorial or monthly check for this, or division 12 by activity, or whatever you want to say. And then I say save. Okay, it asks me for a custom title, which it defaults to what I put in there, and then a note. And then so I can say this is the one I run the last day of the month. Okay, so now when I come back, now I can mess up all my stuff, or I can come back tomorrow and I can check a bunch of boxes, or the boxes are all different, and I can go back and I can go in here and it remembers that, right? Okay, and it puts it back. Okay, the other cool thing I can now do that's new is I can go to go to WinCAMS and saved report templates. If you've never used this before, you have to go in here to configure one time, and it will load all of them, and it will tell you what report templates are out there. for you to search for, because one thing that people have complained about with the saved report templates is they say, yeah, I can save the report template, but I have to know to go into the time card audit trail first. So now this tells me there's time card audit trail. I highlight it. It tells me when I was that it's one of mine, that it was modified on the 9th of April, and it's got my note. And I say, yep, I want that one. I say, okay, now if I go back to my CAMS and saved report templates, now I've got a menu of my reports, right, that are saved. So now I go here, and what this will do is launch the time card audit trail. So it'll launch the correct program. And then once it gets started, it will load my report template, my criteria. And you can see report template loaded, time card audit trail tutorial, and I'm back to my summary report. I'm back to my control breaks that I finished with, and all I have to do is hit go. Or I can, if I had maybe a date range or something like that, maybe I modify the date range, right? So then I go in and and if I had a date range, let's see, time card date, and then I might say, whatever, 04, 01, 19 through 05, 01, 19, right? And move it, bring it forward into the current version of this report. I think that's it for reporting that I can think of. So try it out. Remember, you can't hurt anything with reports, and happy reporting.